He built an empire after she left. He named a foundation after the woman who believed in him when nobody else did. He just did not know she was in the same room. She was clearing plates from table 7 at his charity gala when he finally saw her face. 9 months pregnant. In a hotel uniform. At the event built on the memory of her. He froze. She did not run. And what happened next changed everything neither of them had planned. Welcome to Visa's Tales. If you are new here, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a story. Now sit back, relax, and let's get into it. There is a particular kind of city that Nairobi is at night. It does not sleep, exactly. It does not rage either. It simply hums. The kind of low constant hum that tells you a great many people are alive inside it, and most of them are working hard at something, even in the dark. Especially in the dark. Lena Waru had been part of that hum for 3 years. She was 30 years old. She had a small scar on her chin from a childhood fall off a mango tree that her mother had warned her about, and she had climbed anyway. She had eyes that people often described as watchful. Not because she was suspicious, but because she was paying attention. Always paying attention. It was a habit formed in the years when paying attention was the only advantage she had. She worked as a hospitality attendant for Kijani Events, one of the better catering companies in Nairobi. Better meaning the uniforms were clean and pressed, and the management actually paid on time, which in this industry was not nothing. She had been with them for 11 months. Before that she had worked in a school canteen, a roadside hotel on Gong Road, and briefly, during the worst 3 months, a car wash where she stood outside in the rain directing vehicles for tips. She was good at her work the way people are good at things they have decided to take seriously because they have no other choice and have since chosen to stop resenting it. She arrived early. She stayed late. She did not drop things. She remembered which tables had ordered which dietary requirements, and she did not need to be told twice about anything. Nobody noticed any of this. That was fine. She was used to it. What she was not used to, what she had not prepared for on the evening of the 14th of August, was walking into the ballroom of the Serena Hotel carrying a tray of canapes and seeing, on a large banner above the stage, the words, "The Hope Foundation, Annual Gala. In honor of the vision of Lena W." She stopped walking. The tray tilted. A colleague behind her said, "Careful," and she steadied the tray before anything fell, but her eyes did not move from the banner. Lena W. Her initial. Her name, reduced to a single letter, perhaps to protect privacy, perhaps for design. But she knew. She knew because she had heard about this foundation 3 months ago. She had read about it in a newspaper a colleague had left in the break room. The Hope Foundation, established by tech entrepreneur Daniel Osei, dedicated to funding educational scholarships for young women from low-income backgrounds in East Africa. She had read the article sitting in the break room eating a mandazi, and she had thought, what a good thing. And she had turned the page. She had not read the part that said the foundation was named in honor of a woman named Lena, who believed in the founder before anyone else did. She had not read that part because she had moved on too quickly, and because at the time she had other things pressing on her mind. Rent. The next clinic appointment. The question of how she was going to afford what the doctor had told her she was going to need. Now she stood in the ballroom of the Serena Hotel in her catering uniform with a tray of canapes and a stomach that was 9 months along, and her name on the banner above the stage of the most elegant event she had ever been inside. She thought about walking out. She thought about it seriously, for about 4 seconds. Then she thought about the rent. The clinic. The name on the doctor's report. She kept walking. Table 7 needed its canapes. Daniel Osei did not want to be here. That was not a thing he would say out loud, of course. You do not spend 7 years building a company and 3 years building a foundation, and then say out loud that you do not want to attend your own gala. So he did not say it. He stood at the entrance of the Serena Ballroom in a gray suit that had been tailored specifically for this evening, and he shook hands and he smiled, and he said the right things to the right people, and he did it well because he had been doing it for long enough that it had become as natural as breathing. It was not that he disliked the work of the foundation. He believed in it completely. He had started it because he believed in it. Young women from Nairobi's informal settlements receiving university scholarships because Daniel Osei's company had a good year. That was real. That was something he could be proud of. It was the gala part he found difficult. The gala was performance. The gala was a room full of people who wanted to associate their name with something good, which was fine. That was how philanthropy worked. But it required Daniel to stand here and perform gratitude and humility simultaneously, which was an exhausting combination. His business partner, Robert Kamau, appeared at his shoulder. Robert was 54. He had silver at his temples, and the particular energy of a man who had been in rooms like this his entire career and had learned to love them. Robert loved a gala. Robert loved a seating plan. Robert loved a keynote speech, and a standing ovation, and the specific sound of donors applauding their own generosity. "You need to talk to the Mwangi group before dinner," Robert said, straightening Daniel's lapel without being asked. "They are table 3. They are considering a 5-year commitment." Daniel nodded. "I know. And the deputy cabinet secretary is here," Robert added. "He wants a photograph." "Of course he does." "Daniel." Robert's voice shifted slightly. He used that tone sometimes. The tone that meant what he was about to say was not a suggestion. "Margaret Mwangi is here with her daughter." Daniel looked at him. Robert kept his expression even. "She is at table 5. They are old family friends." "I know who Margaret Mwangi is," Daniel said. Robert was quiet for a moment. "She is a good woman." "The daughter." Daniel looked back at the room. "I am just saying," Robert continued, "that the foundation would benefit significantly from a Mwangi connection. That family has been in philanthropy in this country for 30 years. Their endorsement alone would." "I understand what their endorsement would do," Daniel said. Robert nodded. "Of course." He adjusted his cufflinks. "I am just saying it would not hurt to have a conversation." Daniel said nothing else. Robert moved away to manage something else, which was what Robert did. He managed things. He had been managing things in Daniel's company since the beginning, when Daniel was 26 and had an idea, and a laptop, and no business sense whatsoever. Robert had provided the business sense. That arrangement had worked very well for 7 years. Daniel did not always like it. He moved into the room. The ballroom was full. Perhaps 300 people. Tables decorated in deep green and gold, the foundation's colors. A string quartet played in the corner near the bar. The banner above the stage was lit from below, warm white light, the words readable from anywhere in the room. "The Hope Foundation, Annual Gala. In honor of the vision of Lena W." Daniel looked at the banner for a moment. He looked at it every year, that banner, and it did the same thing to him every year, a tightening somewhere in the chest that he had learned not to examine too closely because examining it too closely led to a place he had decided not to go. Lena. He had not spoken her name out loud in 14 months. He turned his attention back to the room. Catering staff were moving between the tables, carrying trays, straightening glasses, doing the invisible work of making an event like this feel effortless. Daniel had worked catering events himself, briefly, in the year before his company took off. He remembered the weight of a full tray on one hand, the practiced smile, the art of being present and absent at the same time. He glanced toward the far end of the room. One of the attendants was moving between tables 7 and 8, carrying a tray of small appetizers. Something about her posture made him pause. She was moving slightly more carefully than the others. Slower, one hand holding the tray, the other hand periodically moving to the side of her body in a gesture that he recognized, after a moment, as the particular gesture of someone whose back was aching. He did not know why he kept looking. Then she turned, and Daniel Osei felt the air leave the room. He stood very still. His glass, which he had been holding for the last 40 minutes without drinking from, remained in his hand. Lena. Not Lena W. On the banner above the stage. Lena. The actual person. The woman he had spent 14 months trying to reach and failing, and finally accepting, painfully, that she did not want to be reached. She was in a catering uniform. Dark trousers, white shirt, the small Kajani Events logo on the breast pocket. Her hair was braided and pulled back. She looked exactly like herself and completely different at the same time. And she was pregnant. Very pregnant. Daniel's chest stopped functioning normally for a moment. His mind did the arithmetic quickly, and then stopped doing the arithmetic because the arithmetic was leading somewhere he was not ready to go in the middle of his charity gala with 300 people around him. He watched her set the tray down on a service station near table 8. She straightened up slowly. She pressed the back of her hand against her lower back briefly, then picked up the tray again and moved on. She had not looked in his direction. He did not know if she knew he was here, but he could not stop looking at her. He thought about all the messages he had sent, the calls, the letter he had actually written by hand and delivered to the last address he had for her, which turned out to be a flat that she had vacated 2 months before the letter arrived. He thought about the morning he had gone to her aunt's house in Kawangware, and her aunt had looked at him through the door and said only, "She is fine," and closed the door. He had spent 14 months believing she simply did not want to be found. He looked at the banner. He looked at Lena. Something was wrong with this picture, and he could not yet see all of it. Robert appeared at his shoulder again. "The Mwangi table is ready." He looked up and saw the direction of Daniel's gaze. He followed it. He frowned slightly when he saw the catering attendant Daniel was watching. Then his frown deepened when he registered what he was looking at. He turned to Daniel. "Who is that?" "No one you know," Daniel said. Robert studied the woman more carefully. His eyes moved over the uniform, the posture, the obvious pregnancy. Then he looked at Daniel's face. Something shifted in his expression. Something careful. "Daniel," he said slowly. "I know," Daniel said. Robert was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Then he said, in the tone he used for problems that required immediate management, "Come with me." "No." Robert turned to him. "Daniel." "I am not going anywhere." Robert stepped slightly closer. He lowered his voice. "You have 300 donors in this room. 2 potential board members. A deputy cabinet secretary who wants a photograph. Whatever that is," he said, gesturing almost imperceptibly toward the far end of the room, "it can wait until—" "It cannot wait," Daniel said. Robert looked at him. His jaw set slightly. "I need you to think about what you're doing." "I have been thinking about her for 14 months, Daniel said. He set down his untouched glass on the tray of a passing attendant. "That is enough thinking." He walked across the room toward table 9. Lena had moved to table 9. She was collecting empty glasses onto a tray, her back to the main stage, her movements precise and practiced. She did not hear him coming because the room was loud and she was working. He came around the side of the table so that she would see him when she straightened up. She straightened up. She saw him. The tray tilted. He caught it. His hand and her hand were both on the tray for a moment, steadying it. They were close. Much closer than they had been in 14 months. Close enough that he could see the tiredness in her face, the dark circles under her eyes, the specific exhaustion of someone who has been carrying more than they should. "Lena," he said. Her name in his voice. She had not heard that in a very long time. She let go of the tray. He held it. "I am working," she said. Her voice was steady. That steadiness cost her something. He could see that too. "I know," he said. "We need to talk." She shook her head. "Not here." "Then when?" She looked at him. Her eyes were the same. Watchful. Paying attention. But there was something behind them now that had not been there before. Something that looked like the aftermath of a decision she was not sure she had gotten right. "Daniel," she said. "Lena. This is not the time." He looked at her stomach. The question that was building in his chest since the moment he saw her was becoming impossible to contain. He asked it quietly, without accusation. Just asked it. "How long?" She understood immediately what he was asking. She looked away for a moment. 9 months, she said. He absorbed that. 9 months put them in June. She had left in June. He had been away on a fundraising trip to London. She had been at their flat in Killaleshwa. He had come back to find her gone. Her clothes gone. A note on the kitchen table that said 3 words. "I love you." That was all. No explanation. No forwarding address. 3 words that told him nothing and everything at the same time. He had not understood then. He was beginning to understand now. "Whose?" he asked. He asked it because he needed to hear her say it, not because he did not already know the answer somewhere in his body. Lena looked at him directly. "Yours," she said. The ballroom continued around them. 300 people eating canapés and discussing philanthropy, and listening to the string quartet. The banner above the stage glowed warmly. The foundation named for the vision of Lena W. went on being celebrated by people who did not know she was in the room. Daniel set the tray down on the table. He did not say anything for a moment. Then he said, simply, "Come with me." She shook her head again. "I cannot leave in the middle of a shift. I will speak to your supervisor." Daniel. Lena. He said her name the way he always had. Not demanding, not performing. Just saying it. The way you say the name of someone you have not stopped thinking about. "Please." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, 5 minutes. He stood still for a moment while she went back to the table to set down her tray. 5 minutes, after 14 months. He had known Lena for 4 years. They had been together for 3. He had met her at a community library in Westlands where she volunteered on Saturday mornings, shelving books and running a reading group for teenagers from the estate behind the library. He had come in looking for a quiet place to work, and had found instead a room full of young people arguing about whether a particular character in a novel had made the right choice, and a woman at the front of the room who was asking them questions rather than answering them, which was the harder thing to do. He had stayed for 2 hours pretending to work. He had gone back the following Saturday with less pretense. She had noticed him the second time. She said, "You were here last week." He said, "Yes." She said, "Did you get any work done?" He said, "Not much." She smiled. It was not a performing smile. It was the smile of someone who found something genuinely amusing and was not managing the expression at all. He had asked her name. She had said Lena. He had said Daniel. She had said she knew who he was, which surprised him. He was not yet well known. She said, "You came to the youth entrepreneurship panel at Strathmore last month. I was in the third row. I had a question, but the moderator did not get to me." He said, "What was the question?" She said, "How do you know when an idea is good enough to stop being an idea?" He said, "What do you think the answer is?" She said, "I think you know when you cannot stop thinking about it even when you want to." He looked at her. She went back to shelving books. He came back every Saturday for 2 months. Eventually they had dinner. Then another dinner. Then they sat on the wall outside the library one evening after closing, and she told him about her mother who had died when she was 22, and he told her about his father, and neither of them said anything particularly profound, but they were both still sitting there 2 hours later when the security guard came to lock the gate and told them, politely, that they needed to leave. They had been together after that in the way that people are together when it happens without being decided. Simply together, as if the alternative had stopped being available. He had not come from money. He had grown up in Eastleigh, in the flat above his parents' shop. His father had worked hard and built something modest and solid and had expected Daniel to continue it. Daniel had wanted something different, which had been a source of tension between them for years, a tension that had never fully resolved before his father died. The company had started in the second bedroom of the Killaleshwa flat he and Lena rented together. He had a laptop and a vision and very little actual knowledge of what he was doing. Lena had worked her catering and hospitality jobs during the day and listened to him talk through the idea every evening. She did not pretend to understand the technical details. She understood the purpose of it. "You are building something that makes it easier for small businesses to manage their accounts," she said once. "Yes," he said. Then she said, "My mother spent 3 hours every week writing things in a ledger that she could never fully reconcile. If you had built this 10 years ago, she would have cried with relief." He had looked at her. She had said, "So build it properly." He had built it properly. The day the first serious investor expressed interest, had come home at midnight, and she was awake, sitting at the kitchen table with her notebook open, and he had said, "Odieno Capital called," and she had looked up, and he had said, "They want a meeting," and she had closed her notebook and said, "I told you." That was it. 2 words. I told you. He had not forgotten them. He found the Kajani event supervisor near the service station, an efficient woman named Patricia who had clearly been managing events like this for 20 years and had seen everything. He spoke to her quietly. Patricia looked at Lena, looked at Daniel, looked at Lena again, and then said, "She can have 30 minutes and not a minute more. This is a full-service event." Daniel said, "Thank you." He led Lena through the side door of the ballroom, down the corridor that led to a small terrace overlooking the hotel gardens. Nairobi at night stretched out beyond the garden walls, the city doing its low constant hum. The air out here was cooler, quieter. Lena stood with her back against the wall. She had one hand resting on her stomach, the way he'd seen her hold herself inside. Not protectively, exactly. More like acknowledging. Like she was reminding herself something was there. He leaned against the opposite wall. They looked at each other. He spoke first. "Why did you leave?" She looked at the garden. "Lena." She closed her eyes briefly. Then she opened them. "You know why," she said. "I know what you said in the note." He paused. "I love you." That told me nothing. "It told you everything. It told me you were gone," he said. "It did not tell me why." She was quiet for a moment. The garden below had small solar lights along the paths. They blinked softly in the dark. "You were about to get the London investment," she said finally. "I know that. You had been trying for 2 years." She looked at him. "You had meetings every day. You were exhausted. You were close. I remember. And I had just found out," she said. Her voice was even, but something moved underneath it. She stopped and started again. "I had just found out that I was pregnant. And 2 weeks before that I'd found out something else." He waited. She looked at the garden again. The solar lights blinked. A cat crossed one of the paths below and disappeared into the bushes. She said, "I need to tell you something that I should have told you 14 months ago." He waited. She gathered it the way she gathered things. Without drama. From the inside out. "There is a condition," she said. "A placental complication." The placenta had partially separated from the uterine wall. It was manageable with the right medication and monitoring, the doctor said, but it carried risks. "There was a possibility," she said, her voice not wavering, that the delivery would be difficult, that there were risks. To her and to the baby. Daniel had gone very still. It might have been fine, she said quickly. The doctor said most cases like this are managed well. But there was a period in those early weeks when the information was still coming in, and everything felt very uncertain. He found his voice. And you did not tell me. She looked at him. You were about to get the biggest investment of your life. That is not a reason to disappear. You were working 20 hours a day. She kept her voice level. You had meetings in London, in Amsterdam, in Johannesburg. If you had known, you would have cancelled everything. She paused. You would have come home. Yes, he said. I would have. I know, she said softly. And that is why I did not tell you. Daniel pushed himself off the wall. He walked to the edge of the terrace and stood looking at the garden. He breathed. You decided for me, he said. His voice was quiet. Not angry. Something more complicated than angry. I was trying to protect you. You decided for me, he said again. She was quiet. He turned around. I spent 14 months believing you did not want to be with me. He looked at her. I spent 14 months believing I had done something wrong, or that I was not enough, or that you had simply decided to go and chosen not to tell me why. I left a note. 3 words. Lena. She looked down. He walked back toward her. His voice stayed quiet. I found a foundation after you. He looked at the wall behind which the banner glowed. I named it after you. Because you were the only person who believed the company was going to work when everyone else thought I was wasting my time. He stopped in front of her. And you were standing in that room clearing plates, and you did not say anything. I was going to leave as soon as my shift ended, she said. He shook his head slightly. And then what? Go back to wherever you were living? Have this baby alone? I was going to manage. Lena. She looked up at him. You were going to manage, he said. Like you managed before we met. Like you managed when money ran out, and you were working 2 jobs. Like you have managed everything alone your whole life because you decided somewhere that asking for help was the same as being a burden. He stopped. Is that right? She did not answer. He looked at her for a long moment. The baby moved. Visibly. A small shift under her uniform. Lena's hand went to it automatically. She breathed out. Is the condition, he said carefully, under control? Yes, she said. The medication worked. The risk window has passed. The doctor says the delivery should be straightforward now. He nodded slowly. When? 3 weeks. He closed his eyes for a moment. 3 weeks. I did not want to ruin anything, she said. Her voice broke very slightly on the last word, and she pressed her lips together against it. You did not ruin anything, he said. Your gala is a room full of people who do not know you're out here. He looked at her. The gala will go on without me for 30 minutes. She looked at him uncertainly. He reached into his jacket pocket and took out his phone. He found the number and dialed. It rang twice. Robert, he said, I need 40 minutes. Handle the keynote introduction. He listened. Robert was saying something at length and with feeling. I know, Daniel said. I understand. Tell the Mwangi table I will be at dinner. Yes. He ended the call. He put the phone back in his pocket. Lena was watching him. Robert is going to have a great deal to say to me later, Daniel said. He is going to be furious, she said. Yes, he agreed. He gestured toward a bench on the terrace. Come and sit down. Your back is hurting. She almost said she was fine. She sat down. He sat beside her. Not too close. The bench had space between them, and for now the space was right. The city hummed below. The garden lights blinked softly. Tell me everything, he said. From the beginning. When you found out. She looked at him for a moment. Then she told him. She told him about the clinic visit in July. The scan that the doctor had looked at for a moment too long before asking her to come back the following week. The following week appointment when the specialist was brought in. The careful language they used. Words that meant frightening things. Delivered in calm voices. She told him about sitting in the clinic car park afterward and calling her cousin Beatrice because Beatrice was the only person she could call and Beatrice had driven there immediately and they had sat in the car for 2 hours not saying much. She told him about the decision she had made in those 2 hours. That Daniel was 4 days away from a London meeting that could change everything. That she had watched him work toward that moment for 2 years. That the company employed 11 people by then, and those 11 people had families. That she had looked at all of that, and looked at a medical report, and made a calculation. The calculation was wrong, Daniel said quietly. She nodded. I know that now. It was wrong then too. Maybe, she said. But it made sense to me at the time. He was quiet for a moment. What did you live on? I had savings, she said. She paused. For the first 3 months. After that I found work. The catering company has been good. Regular income. The supervisor knows about the pregnancy, and she has been reasonable. He thought about those months. The fundraising in London. The investment closing. The expansion of the company. The office party when the Series A was announced. 11 people celebrating in the boardroom. He had looked at that room and thought, I wish Lena was here. She should have been here. She had been here. In Nairobi. Working catering events. Pregnant with his child. Going to clinic appointments alone. He rubbed his face slowly. I should have looked harder, he said. You could not have found me, she said. I was careful. That should not have been necessary. She looked at her hands. The condition, he said. You said the risk window has passed. She nodded. But the delivery. Is there anything they're watching for? The doctor wants to do a planned cesarean, she said. It is safer given the history. It is scheduled for the 30th. The 30th, he repeated. Of this month. Yes. He absorbed that. 3 weeks and 2 days. Where are you doing it? Nairobi Women's Hospital, she said. He nodded. Good hospital. I know. She paused. I researched it. Of course she had. He looked at her. You are not doing the 30th alone. She started to say something. You are not, he said. That is not a discussion. That is me telling you what is happening. She looked at him for a moment. Then, quietly, she said. You're angry with me. I am, he said honestly. I am also frightened and relieved, and I have about 14 months of questions I need answers to. But none of that changes what I just said. She was quiet. He looked at the garden. You left because you love me. She did not answer. That is what the note meant, he said. I love you means I am leaving because I love you. Not because I do not. She looked at him. He looked back. I know you, Lena, he said. I know how your mind works. You decided that leaving was the kindest thing you could do for me, and you did it completely and cleanly the way you do everything. He paused. You were wrong. But I understand why. Her eyes were bright. The baby moved again. She put her hand on her stomach. He watched. Boy or girl? He asked. Boy, she said. His breath caught slightly. A son. She watched his face change. I was going to name him David, she said quietly. After your father. Daniel looked at her for a long time. His father had died 4 years ago. Before the company took off. He had not known what his son was going to build. The fact that Lena knew that name. That she had chosen it. For a child she was planning to raise alone. He felt something loosen in his chest. That is a good name, he said. She nodded. The terrace was quiet for a moment. He stood up. Come back inside, he said. She frowned slightly. My shift is not finished. I will speak to Patricia. He reached out his hand. Lena looked at it. She thought about 14 months of managing alone. She thought about the clinic car park. She thought about her cousin Beatrice driving there immediately and sitting in the car without being asked to say anything useful. She thought about the banner above the stage. Her initial on a foundation that was changing lives. The vision of Lena W. She thought about the note she had left on the kitchen table. 3 words. She reached out and took his hand. He helped her to her feet. They stood facing each other on the terrace. She was shorter than he remembered. Or he was taller. Or they had simply both changed in 14 months in ways that were not yet fully visible. Robert is going to be in that lobby, she said. Yes, Daniel said. He is not going to be happy about this. No. She looked at him. What are you going to tell him? He thought about Robert and the Mwangi table, and the deputy cabinet secretary, and the 5-year donor commitment, and all of the things that Robert had been carefully managing toward a particular outcome for the past several months. The truth, he said. And what is the truth? He looked at her. That I found the woman I named this foundation after. And she is coming inside with me. And she is going to sit at my table for dinner. Lena looked at the door back into the ballroom. 300 people, she said. 300 people, he agreed. She looked down at her uniform. He followed her gaze. One of the hotel staff came out of the side entrance at that moment, a young man with a spare blazer over his arm, a Serena hotel blazer, the kind they kept for guests who needed one. Daniel stopped him. Can she borrow that? The young man looked at Lena, looked at the blazer, looked at Daniel, and then nodded without asking further questions. Lena put the blazer on over her uniform. It was slightly large. It covered the Kijani logo. She looked at Daniel. He looked at her. She still looked like a woman who had been on her feet for 4 hours. She still looked tired and pregnant, and like someone who had been carrying more than she should. But she also looked like herself. Watchful. Paying attention. The woman who had believed in him before anyone else did, and had gone on believing in him even after she left, which was in some ways harder. Ready? He said. She breathed. No, she said. He opened the door. She walked through. The ballroom was in full dinner service when they came back in. Waiters moved between tables. The string quartet had been replaced by a solo pianist. The hum of conversation was warm and full. Robert saw them the moment they entered. He was standing near the edge of the room with his tablet and his event run sheet and his 30 years of managing exactly this kind of situation. He looked at Lena. He looked at the Serena Hotel blazer. He looked at the way Daniel was guiding her through the room. His face said several things in rapid sequence. Daniel led Lena toward his table at the front of the room. Table 1. The host's table. 2 seats remained unoccupied. Robert appeared beside them before they reached it. He moved with the particular speed of a man who had been watching the situation develop from across the room and had calculated exactly how long he had to intercept it. He stopped in front of them. He looked at Daniel. He looked at Lena. He looked at the hotel blazer. He said, quietly and precisely, Daniel, I need 1 minute. Daniel looked at him. Robert's eyes moved to Lena. He said, please excuse us for just a moment. Lena looked at Daniel. Daniel looked at Robert. He said, you have 30 seconds. Robert pulled him slightly to the side. He spoke in a very low voice. He said, I do not know who this woman is or what the situation is, but you have the Mwangi table waiting. You have the deputy cabinet secretary. I know what I have, Daniel said. Then let me manage this, Robert said. Whatever it is. Let me find her a table near the back, get her settled, and you can speak with her after. She is sitting at table 1, Daniel said. Robert looked at him. Daniel looked back. Robert's expression went through several things rapidly. He said, and you're telling me this is not negotiable. I am telling you nothing is more important than what is sitting at table 1 right now. Robert looked at Lena again. He held his tablet against his chest. He said, the Mwangi Partnership could fund 40 more scholarships next year. Daniel said, I know. Robert said nothing for a moment. Then he said, all right. He turned and walked back to the table. Daniel followed with Lena. Robert turned to face them at the table. Daniel, he said quietly. Robert, this is Lena, Daniel said. She is going to sit with us for dinner. Robert looked at her. His expression was controlled, but his eyes were working very hard. Lena Waru, Daniel said. Robert's eyes flickered to the banner above the stage. To Lena. To Daniel. Back to Lena. He said nothing for a moment. Then he said, very quietly, the Lena W. Yes, Daniel said. Robert looked at her for a long moment. Lena met his gaze steadily. She had spent her whole life being looked at by people who were calculating something. Robert's expression shifted. It was subtle, but it shifted. He turned to a passing waiter. He said something quiet. The waiter nodded and moved off. 2 minutes later a chair was added to the host's table. A place was set. Robert looked at Daniel. The keynote is in 20 minutes, he said. He looked at Lena. Can I get you anything? Water, juice? Water please, Lena said. Robert nodded. He moved away to manage something else. Daniel looked at Lena. She looked at him. That, she said quietly, was not what I expected. Robert is many things, Daniel said. He respects people who show up. She looked at the table. At the seat that had just been added. He pulled a chair out for her. She sat down. He sat beside her. The gala continued around them. 300 people who did not know that the woman named on the banner above the stage had just walked in from the terrace and was sitting at table 1 eating dinner. The pianist played something warm and unhurried. The candles on the tables gave everything a gold quality. Lena looked up at the banner. The vision of Lena W. She had read those words from across the room 2 hours ago, and they had almost made her drop a tray. Now she was sitting under them. This is strange, she said. He looked at her. Yes. She looked at him. You really named it after me. I really did. She was quiet for a moment. Why? He looked at the room. Because when I had nothing, you told me it was going to work. Not maybe. Not possibly. You said it's going to work, Daniel. And you said it the way you say things. Like you had already seen it, and you were just waiting for me to catch up. She looked at the tablecloth. That stayed with me, he said. When the company started growing, when the investment came through, when we opened the second office, I kept thinking about that. That someone had seen it before I did. He paused. I wanted to honor that. She said nothing for a moment. Then she said, I saw it because it was true. Not because I am particularly wise. He smiled. Maybe both. She put her hand on her stomach. The baby shifted. He watched. Is he active tonight? Daniel asked. She nodded. He has been moving a lot. She paused. I think he can feel when I'm nervous. He looked at her. Are you nervous? Yes. He nodded. So am I. She looked at him sideways. You do not seem it. I have been performing calm for 7 years, he said. It is a skill. She almost smiled. Almost. The keynote speech was delivered by the Foundation's program director, a quietly brilliant woman named Dr. Aking, who had been running the scholarship program since its 2nd year. She spoke for 15 minutes about the young women who had received funding, their academic progress, the futures being built. She spoke without sentimentality, with precise statistics and specific names, and the room listened completely. Daniel listened and watched Lena listen. At one point Dr. Aking said, this foundation was built on the belief that potential is not the same as circumstance. That where a young woman starts is not where she has to end. That someone believing in your future can change the shape of it. Lena's hands, which were resting on the table, tightened slightly. Daniel saw it. He did not say anything. When Dr. Aking finished, the room applauded. Then the foundation's chair invited Daniel to say a few words. He stood. He walked to the small stage. He looked out at the room. 300 faces turned toward him. Robert near the back, expressionless, tablet in hand. The Mwangi table. The deputy cabinet secretary. And at table 1, Lena, in a borrowed hotel blazer, one hand resting on her stomach, looking at him. He had prepared remarks. Robert had prepared remarks for him. Actually, 3 paragraphs, clear and appropriate. He did not use them. He said, when I started this company I was 26 years old and I was certain about one thing, which was that I did not know what I was doing. He paused. I had an idea. Ideas are easy. What is hard is believing the idea is worth anything when everything around you is telling you it is not. The room was quiet. He looked at the banner. He looked at Lena. Someone believed it was worth something before I did, he said. I cannot fully explain what that does for a person. When someone looks at your future and sees it more clearly than you can. When they say it simply, without drama, as though they've already been there and come back. He stopped for a moment. That person is the reason this foundation exists. The hope they gave me is the hope we are trying to give to the young women we fund. He looked at the room. I found her tonight, he said. After 14 months. The room shifted. She is sitting at table 1. 300 people turned toward table 1. Lena looked at the tablecloth. He looked at her from a stage. She was going to be angry about this later. He was fairly certain of that. He was also fairly certain it was worth it. He said, thank you all for being here. Then he stepped off the stage. The room applauded. He walked back to the table. He sat down beside her. She kept looking at the tablecloth. That was not in your prepared remarks, she said. No, he said. She looked up at him. 300 people just looked at me. Yes. In a hotel blazer over a catering uniform. Yes. While 8 months pregnant. He nodded. She looked at him for a long moment. And then, quietly, she laughed. It was a short laugh, surprised out of her, and she covered her mouth with her hand immediately, but it had happened. He had heard it. He smiled. She looked at the room, where people were returning to their dinners, talking in low, warm voices. You are impossible, she said. I have been told that, he said. She shook her head slightly. She looked at her water glass. The rest of the dinner passed more quietly. Robert came to the table at one point and said something to Daniel about the Mwangi table that Daniel responded to in 2 sentences. The deputy cabinet secretary stopped by and shook Daniel's hand and said congratulations, which could have meant many things, and moved on. An older woman who introduced herself as Margaret Mwangi stopped and looked at Lena with curious warm eyes and said, so you are the Lena W. And Lena said yes, and Margaret Mwangi said, then I am very glad you came tonight, and moved on. After she left, Lena said, who is that? A potential foundation donor, Daniel said. She looked after her. She seemed kind. She is, he said. She has been in philanthropy in this country for 30 years. Lena nodded slowly. Robert wants me to talk to her daughter, Daniel said. Lena looked at him. He looked back at her. I will tell Robert the situation has changed, he said. She looked at the table. You do not have to do that. I know I do not have to. She was quiet. Daniel, she said. Yes. I am not asking you for anything. She kept her voice level. I want you to know that. I was not here tonight to find you. I did not even know this was your event until I walked in. I know that. And I'm not going to hold you to anything because of the baby. She looked at him. Whatever you decide about your own life is your decision. He looked at her for a moment. My son, he said. She blinked. His name is David, he said. And he is going to need a father. He paused. Whether or not that is inconvenient for anybody. She was very still. So I am not deciding anything, he said. I am just telling you what is happening. She looked at him. He looked back. The pianist began a new piece. Something quieter. Outside, Nairobi hummed its low constant hum. The gala wound down around midnight. Guests began saying their goodbyes. The foundation director was deep in conversation with 3 donors near the bar. Robert was managing the final departures with his usual precision, saying the right things to the right people, ensuring the evening ended cleanly. Daniel found Patricia from Kijani Events near the service station. He thanked her for her staff's work. He said that Lena would not be completing her shift. He offered to cover the lost hours. Patricia looked at him. She looked at Lena, who was standing nearby. She said, "She is a good worker. Take care of her." He said he intended to. His driver brought the car around. Lena stood outside the hotel entrance in the Nairobi night air. She had given the hotel blazer back. She was in her uniform again. She had her small bag over her shoulder, the bag she brought to every shift with her snacks and her clinic appointment card and her phone, and the small worn notebook she carried everywhere. Daniel came and stood beside her. She looked at the city. He looked at her. "You can say no," he said. "I will respect it." He paused. "But I am asking you to come home. Not to my home. To our home. The flat in Kileleshwa is still there. I never moved." He looked at the street. "Your wardrobe is still there. I did not touch it. I thought about clearing it out about 7 times, and each time I did not." She turned to look at him. "I did not clear it out because I was not ready to accept that you were not coming back," he said. He said it plainly. "I am not performing humility, or trying to make you feel guilty. It is just what happened." She was quiet for a moment. 14 months, she said softly. "I know." She looked at her stomach. The baby shifted. She put her hand there. His son. She thought about the clinic car park. Beatrice sitting with her. The calculation she had made that she had believed was right, and that had cost her 14 months of doing everything alone. She thought about the note she had left. 3 words. The smallest possible confession. She thought about Dr. Aking saying potential is not the same as circumstance. That someone believing in your future can change the shape of it. She thought about a man naming a foundation after her initial, and not knowing she would walk into the room. The car was waiting. The driver held the door. Lena looked at Daniel. "Your spare room," she said. "Not. Whatever you need," he said. She nodded slowly. She walked toward the car. He walked beside her. She stopped at the door. "One more thing," she said. He waited. "You are going to come to the appointment on the 30th. She looked at him. "I want you to know what you are walking into. It is a hospital room, and it will be medical, and it will not be comfortable. I know what a hospital is, Lena. I know you do." She looked at him. "I am saying you do not have to perform anything there. Not calm, not strength, not anything. It is just going to be what it is." He looked at her. "I will be there," he said. She got into the car. He got in beside her. The driver closed the door. They drove through Nairobi at midnight. The city hummed around them, warm and complex and alive. The streets were quieter now. The Matatus gone. The hawkers gone. Only the occasional car and the glow of all-night kiosks. Lena leaned her head back against the seat. She was very tired. The baby shifted once more and settled. "Good," she said quietly. "Go to sleep." Daniel heard her. He did not say anything. He looked out of his window at the city that had made him what he was, passing dark and bright in equal measure. Nairobi at midnight. All those people alive inside it, working hard at something, even in the dark. One evening, about a week before the 30th, Daniel came home to find Lena sitting at the kitchen table with her notebook open and a pen in her hand, not writing. She was looking at the window. He put his bag down and put the kettle on without saying anything. He made 2 cups of tea. He put hers in front of her. She looked at it. Then she said, "I have been thinking about what Dr. Aking said. About the procedure." He sat across from her. She said it is routine. That she has done many of these. She paused. "I know that. I also know that routine does not mean uncomplicated." He nodded. She looked at her notebook. She had written something in it. He could not read it from where he sat. I am not frightened of the procedure itself, she said. I am frightened of the hour before it. She looked at him. That specific hour when you are lying in the bed and they have done all the preparation and you are waiting, and there is nothing left to do, and your mind goes to every possible thing. He held his mug. She said, I used to do that alone. The hour before the clinic appointments. She paused. I used to play audiobooks very loudly so that my mind would not have space to go where it wanted to go. He looked at her. She said, I do not want to do that on the 30th. He said, You will not have to. She looked at him. I will be there, he said. For the whole hour. She looked at her notebook again. You can play the audiobook too if you want, he said. She almost smiled. He reached across the table and put his hand over hers. They sat there for a while with the tea going cool and Nairobi doing its thing outside, and neither of them needing to say anything else. The 30th came on a Thursday. It came after 2 weeks of careful, practical, not always comfortable adjustment. They did not discuss the past every day. Some days they did not discuss it at all. He went to work. She rested, mostly, which she had not been allowing herself to do before, and attended clinic appointments, which he now attended with her. He sat in the waiting room the first time because she had said clinic rooms were small and she preferred to be seen alone. The second time she said he could come in if he wanted. He came in. The doctor was a calm woman named Dr. Wanjiru who had been managing Lena's case since July. She shook Daniel's hand and said, I have been hoping she would stop coming alone. He looked at Lena. Lena looked at the ceiling. The flat in Kileleshwa was the same. He had not been wrong about the wardrobe. Her things were there. The small space she had made her own in the 3 years they had been together, a shelf of books above the bed, a particular mug she used for morning tea, the framed photograph of her mother on the dresser. All of it was exactly where she had left it. She stood in the doorway of the bedroom for a long moment. He stood behind her. I thought about redecorating, he said. At least 5 times. She turned to look at him. He shrugged. I never did it. She turned back to the room. She walked in. She put her bag on the bed and sat down on the edge of it. He stayed in the doorway. She looked at the photograph of her mother. Her mother had died when Lena was 22. Too early. Too fast. The photograph was the formal one from her mother's church. The one where she was wearing her best dress and looking slightly to the side of the camera, as though something interesting had just happened just beyond the frame. Do you ever talk to her? Lena asked. He looked at the photograph. I told her about the company once, he said. When the first big contract came through. I sat in here and I talked to the photograph. She looked at him. I told her you had been right, he said. About everything. Lena looked back at the photograph. They were quiet for a moment. She said that whatever I started, I should finish. Her voice was soft. She said that more than anything. Do not start things you will not finish. He was quiet. I started something with you, she said. She looked at her stomach. We started something. Yes, he said. I should not have left. He was still in the doorway. She looked at him. I know, he said. She exhaled. He crossed the room and sat beside her on the edge of the bed. Not close. Side by side. They looked at the photograph together. I am sorry, she said. He shook his head. You do not have to. I do, she said. I do have to. She looked at him. I was trying to protect you and I ended up doing what I was afraid you would do. I left. He was quiet. She looked at her hands. I thought about calling you. Every week for the first 3 months. She paused. I had your number dialed once. I sat with my finger on the screen for about 10 minutes, and then I did not press it. What stopped you? She thought about it. By then you had the investment. The company was in the news. She looked at the framed article on the opposite wall. There was always an article, in the houses of people who had been written about. She had not known that about him before, when they had nothing worth writing about. You were becoming what you had worked for. She paused. I did not want to be the thing that complicated that. He looked at the article. I would have come back, he said. If you had called. I know. Nothing would have been more important. I know that too, she said. That is what frightened me. He turned to look at her. That is exactly what frightened me, she said again. That I would call you and you would come back and you would be there at every appointment and you would manage everything and take care of everything. And then one day you would look at your company and think about what it could have been if you had not had to come back. He looked at her for a long moment. That would not have happened, he said. You do not know that. I know myself. She looked at him. Daniel. I know you too. She said it gently. I know that you give everything. To everything you commit to. That is who you are. She paused. I could not ask you to divide that. He was quiet. She looked at the photograph of her mother. I think I was also frightened, she said more quietly. For myself. Not just for you. The condition. The uncertainty. She stopped. I did not want you to watch me be frightened. He reached out and took her hand. She looked at their hands. He said nothing. He simply held it. The room was quiet. A week passed. Then another. The flat grew quieter with the specific quiet of two people learning how to be in the same space again after a long time apart. The Thursday came. He drove her to the hospital at 6 a.m. The roads were quiet. Nairobi before dawn was a different city, almost tender. They did not talk much in the car. She held her small bag on her lap. He drove. At the hospital they were taken to the maternity ward, and Lena was prepared for the procedure. She changed into the hospital gown. She sat on the edge of the bed, and he sat in the chair beside her. The nurse came and checked her blood pressure and the baby's heartbeat and wrote things down. Are you all right? He asked. She looked at the window. It was getting light outside. The first pale gray of the Nairobi morning. I am frightened, she said. He reached over and took her hand again. She let him. The surgical team arrived at 7:30. They were efficient and kind, which was the particular combination that hospitals at their best managed. Dr. Wanjiru was there. She spoke to Lena with the calm of someone who had done this many times and knew that the calm itself was what the patient needed most. Daniel was allowed in the room for part of it. They walked him in and gave him a chair beside the head of the bed, behind the surgical screen. He sat down. He took her hand. She was very still. The room smelled clean and medicinal, and the lights were very white. She said, Do not look over the screen. He said, I was not planning to. She said, Good. He looked at her face instead. She was looking at the ceiling. Her breathing was controlled. He had seen her controlled before, the deliberate composure she reached for when something was hard. But this was different from that. This was not composure. This was something deeper, something below composure. She was somewhere inside herself that was not accessible from outside. He held her hand and let her be there. The procedure was not long. Dr. Wanjiru spoke occasionally in a calm narrating voice, not to them specifically, simply aloud, the way experienced surgeons do, a kind of steady professional murmur that said everything is proceeding as it should. At one point Lena's grip on his hand tightened suddenly, and she said, Oh, and then said nothing else. He said, I have you. She did not answer, but her grip did not loosen. He held on. And then he heard the cry before he saw anything. The cry was small and astonished, the way all new voices are. A new voice meeting the air for the first time, and finding it strange and full, and too much, and not enough all at once. And then a nurse said, He is here, and brought him. David. He was very small. He had Lena's watchful look already, or so Daniel thought, which was probably not possible this early, but he thought it anyway. He had his eyes open, and he was looking at the ceiling with the expression of someone who had just been told unexpected news. Lena, the nurse said softly. They placed him in her arms. She held him and looked at him, and did not say anything for a long moment. He is here, Daniel said. His voice was not steady. She looked up at him. Neither of them spoke. David made a small sound. He turned his head slightly. He settled. Daniel reached out, and very carefully put a finger near the baby's hand. The tiny hand opened and closed around it. He sat there for a long time. The sun came fully up over Nairobi. In the weeks that followed, Robert said very little about the gala, which was its own kind of statement. What he said, once, was this. The Mwangi Foundation has offered a partnership. Margaret Mwangi specifically requested Lena be involved in the program design if she is willing. Daniel looked at him. Robert looked back. I told you she was kind, Daniel said. Robert said nothing else about it. Lena, when told, was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I would need to understand what that involves. Robert said he would arrange a meeting. She said all right. The flat in Kileleshwa continued to adjust itself around 3 people instead of 1. Or 2. It adjusted itself around 3 people plus the very particular force of a new person who had opinions about sleep and feeding and the specific octave at which the world should be narrated to him, which turned out to be fairly low and steady. Lena narrated the world to him in that low, steady voice while Daniel sat in the kitchen in the evenings after work and listened to her from the other room. He listened because he had missed 14 months of her voice and he was not ready to miss any more of it. She knew he was listening. She kept talking. One evening when David was 5 weeks old and asleep in the next room, and Nairobi was doing its night hum outside the window, Lena came into the kitchen and sat across from Daniel at the table. He had his laptop open. He closed it. She put something on the table between them. It was a small piece of paper, folded in half. He looked at it. He picked it up and unfolded it. 3 words. I love you. The note she had left on the kitchen table 14 months ago. He had kept it. Of course he had kept it. It was in a drawer in his office. She had found it. He looked at her. She said, I meant it when I wrote it. I mean it now. He looked at the note. He looked at her. He said, I know. She nodded. He said, I meant to say something to you on the terrace at the gala. Before we went back inside. She waited. He said, I was going to tell you that I named the foundation after you because I thought you were gone. He folded the note back along its crease. And I wanted there to be something that said that someone like you had existed in my life and had mattered. He put the note flat on the table. I did not think I was going to get to say it to your face. She was quiet. He looked at her. You are not gone, he said. She shook her head. He reached across the table. She took his hand. Outside, the city hummed. Low and constant. All those people alive inside it. Working hard at something. Even in the dark. Especially in the dark.